Welcome to the discussion the day, which is about case management process. What is case management process? It is a process of ensuring that an identified child has his or her needs for care, protection, and support met. Case management process is dynamic and interactive. The process includes the analysis, decision making, and record keeping. Case management process is child-centered and family-focused. The process involves direct support and referral to other services for comprehensive intervention. Case management process consists of intake, assessment, planning, implementation, monitoring, review of case plan, and closure of the case, with an aim of delivering quality services to the identified child and the family at large. The process calls for multi-sectoral approach by all child protection stakeholders, running from the national government, county government, civil society organizations, community, and family. Let us now look at the key players in driving case management processes. The key players are the case worker and the case manager. Now, who is a case worker? A case worker is a person who develops the case plan, monitors implementation, and submits periodic reports and feedback to the case manager. Whereby, on the other hand, a case manager is any person mandated to provide leadership in coordinating and planning of service delivery. We shall now look at the case management process or case management stages. We have different stages that you must go through for you to deliver accordingly. The first stage or the first step is identification or intake. The second step or stage is assessment. The third stage or process or step is case planning. The fourth step is implementation. The fifth step or stage is follow-up or monitoring and review. The last stage is case closure or termination. Let us now discuss each stage in detail so that we may understand what it entails. When you talk of identification, what does it entail? When you talk about follow-up, what does it entail? Now, we will begin with the first stage, which is identification or intake. Identification is the entry point for any child who is in need of care and protection. At the immediate contact with the child, a caseworker should establish a rapport with the child and they consider child's immediate safety and basic needs. The caseworker should also assess potential risks, and if there are no concerns, a case is closed. The stage involves identifying, receiving, and recording the case. Now, let us discuss key guidelines for identification or intake. This step or this stage begins when an informant identifies or learns of a child in need of care and protection services and then alerts child protection actors of a potential risk about a child. The process can be initiated by professionals such as teachers, medical personnel, social workers, counselors, among others. Community workers such as child protection officers, community health volunteers, child protection volunteers, officers. Opinion leaders, traditional and religious leaders. Local administrators, for instance, chief, assistant chief, parents, guardians, family, and community members. Child through self-reporting. A child may come and report that I have a challenge. I'm going through ABCD. So I'm in need of care and protection. So those are ways on which a child in need of care and protection may be identified. The caseworker receiving the child should assess the urgent needs, for instance, safety, medical need, and attend to them instantly. The caseworker should categorize the case, open a file, and record all the information concerning the case in a case record sheet. While doing that, friendly communication skills is required to gather information effectively. So as a caseworker, you should have a friendly communication skills. Communicate friendly with this subject. He or she will open up and give you information that you are looking for. Then at the end of the day, you'll be able to manage that case from the beginning to the end. At identification stage, the following key considerations should be examined. The first one, what is the concern or issue at hand? The second point is that what is the condition and behavior of the child? How is the child behaving? Remember, the first one was said, what is the concern? The second should be, what is the condition and behavior of the child? The third one is that, can the child, parent, or primary caregiver be identified and located via home contact and the nearest landmark? Other point is that, can the motive of the informant be discerned? Another point is that, how are the characteristics, dynamics, and support of the family? From the assessment, is the child safe? Is the nature of the case established? Is it an emergency case? What level of risk is the child in? Has an individual file been opened? Having discussed the first stage or the first process in case management, I now want us to go to the second step or the second stage, which we said it is assessment. What is assessment now? Assessment is the process of establishing the challenges, needs, and rights of a child and his or her family in the wider context of the community. It should cover the physical, emotional, moral, cognitive, and social and development needs of the child. You are assessing. Remember, this is an assessment. When you talk about assessments, that you look into so many factors. Assessment and interventions must be made on the basis of knowledge about child development, child rights, and child protection, such as understanding vulnerability and risk factors and family dynamics. Now, the following should be considered while carrying out case assessment. The caseworker should gather the required information. The caseworker should seek the wishes and opinions of the child and the family that will be considered in decision making. The caseworker should then examine the credibility and validity of the information gathered. Apart from the negative factors, the assessment should also evaluate the positive influences of the child, family, and environment. Based on the information gathered as evidence, the case manager should make sense of the information gathered to make the final decision on whether the case is viable for execution or not. Assessment should evaluate beyond a child's immediate safety and basic needs. Remember, information should be gathered and documented from as many people as possible. This includes the family, neighbors, teachers, child's peers, and community leaders. A complete assessment tool at all the dimensions of child well-being and wellness will include food and nutrition, shelter and care, education, healthy, psychosocial well-being, protection. Let us look at the assessment checklist. Like when you are assessing this particular subject, what are the checklists? What are you supposed to look for? The first one is that take note of details of the child and the family background, as well as physical, emotional, educational, and cognitive needs of the child. The second point is that what other risk factors of the child exist that need to be addressed. For instance, stigma. What is the situation of siblings and other children in the family? Ask them, what is the situation of other children? Assess. Child participation. What is the child's opinion and view about the case? This will ensure every action is taken in the best interest of the child. Has the parenting capacity, child development needs, family and environmental factors been taken into account? Step 3 or stage 3 of case management process. This is about case planning. This stage involves identifying the strategies that will address the physical, emotional, educational, and social needs of the child based on the assessment. Case planning is an interactive process involving meaningful participation of the child, his or her family, and the caseworker in decision making. A case plan must be well documented, and those working with the case should identify goals, objectives, and tasks with clear defined responsibilities and time frames for meeting the goals. Case plans are developed by the caseworker, where caseworker or manager requires comprehensive input from other stakeholders. A case conference can be convened. Let us look at the key guidelines for case planning. The first guideline is that document clearly the child and family needs based on the assessment results. Make sure that you have documented clearly the child and family needs based on the assessment results. Remember, in the assessment we said gather as much information as possible. So in case planning, you make sure that you have documented clearly the child and family needs based on the assessment results. Point number 3 is that based on the child's needs, prepare an outline of the end results by defining the goals and objectives. Another point is that you break the objectives into separate, realistic, and measurable targets. Clearly define the services needed, responsible persons to provide these services, including the child and the family, and how these services should be sequenced based on the priority. Realistically, set up a timeline for meeting the goal, objective, and tasks. Develop a monitoring plan and exit strategy for the child and family. Still on the checklist, what are the outcomes that when achieved will indicate that risk is reduced and the effects of child abuse has been successfully addressed? What goals and tasks must be accomplished to achieve this outcome? What are the priorities among the outcomes, goals, and tasks? What interventions or services will best facilitate successful outcome? Are the appropriate services available? How and when will progress be monitored and evaluated? How and when will the progress be monitored and evaluated? Now, let us look at the implementation stage. Remember, this is the stage number 4. Implementation stage, it is a stage during which the case plan is put into action. It includes providing direct services to the child and family, or link the child and family to an appropriate service provider. Remember, we talked of referral. Using available resources to meet the identified needs. We shall now look at the key guidelines for implementation. What are you supposed to consider while doing implementation or while at the implementation stage? The first one is that you ensure regular communication with the child and the caregiver to confirm that their needs are being met in a timely manner. Number 2, the case manager and case worker should organize and coordinate delivery of services to the child. The services should be in line with the set goals in the case plan. In case services are not readily available or accessible, a contingency plan should be put in place. The last point, which is point number 4 on the key guidelines for implementation, is that where there is a challenge in implementation of a case plan, a case worker or case manager can incorporate other stakeholders in child protection to make formal decisions with the best interest of the child in mind. To facilitate this, a case conference can be convened. Implementation of a case plan requires a strong collaboration between child protection actors for ease of referral. Now, making referrals to other organizations ensure that the clients receive high quality services not available within the case workers organization. It is important to note for referral cases, the primary responsibility of the case remains with the case worker until all actions outlined in the case plan are achieved. We shall now look at the implementation checklist. We have guidelines and then we have the implementation checklist. And our checklists are this way. Are the activities in the case plan being implemented as planned? That's the checklist number 1. Checklist number 2 is that, are appropriate referrals being done? Are we doing the right referrals? That's another checklist, implementation checklist. Third checklist is that, is feedback received or expected? Do we expect to get a feedback from the organization that we referred this case to? Another point is that has the family and the child involved in the safety plan and the placement process? Another checklist is that has the contact provided to the family after rescue and placement either in a safe house as soon as possible, ideally within the first week, unless providing contact posts high security list to the child. Has the child been reassured that there is nothing wrong with him or her, and that he or she is not to blame for the removal of rescue from home? For instance, if you rescued the child from the family, have you informed that child? Have you shared the crucial information as to why you rescued the child from that caregiver? Another point is that was the child allowed to take as many personal favorite items as possible, such as photos of the family or home, toys or clothing, while rescuing that child, maybe from a family setting? Did you allow the child to pick up those things that he or she likes? Maybe that child likes toys. Did you allow him or her to pick them? Another point is that have you found out as much as possible about the child's likes and dislikes, routines, medical issues, and informed the temporary home's care provider? Have you identified that? Maybe the child likes playing. Have you identified that this child likes playing? Another point is that has the child been encouraged to express his or her feelings and normalize those feelings, possibly through engaging in activities she or he like? The last point we shall talk about, has the child been given a phone number to contact the children officer or the helpline for moral support? You are supposed to provide satellite contacts, a children officer, sub-county children officer, a county children officer, or the child helpline, which is 116. Have you provided that to that minor so that in case of challenges he or she may contact to get the required support? Case monitoring. Let us discuss something on case monitoring, whereby case monitoring is a process that involves meeting with the child and those who regularly interact with the family to provide ongoing support and assessment to be sure that the services provided are still in the child's best interest and that needs are met. You do a case called case monitoring follow-up. Visits are periodic and scheduled in advance. Frequency determined on a needs basis. Monitoring also provides a chance to build the capacity of the family and review progress against the case plan. For permanent placements, monitoring checks how the family is moving towards permanency. Maybe you place a child at home permanent, so you want the family to pick up the roles of providing the necessary needs, necessary support, necessary protection, necessary care to that child. Case monitoring is also important. We shall now look at the steps involved in case monitoring or case monitoring steps. The first one is that case worker to visit the family at a agreed time. the time that was set during the last visit and confirmed within the week before. Maybe you visit the family last month, then you planned that you'll be meeting come this month on a particular day. You are supposed to call the family and ask them, will you be there during that time, so that you pay them a visit, you see them. Point number 2 is that discuss care plan with the family members with focus on what has gone well since the last visit, what actors have been achieved and by whom, which actors have not been achieved and why, and any other pertinent issue. Now, in that case, all information should be marked in the case plan and monitoring form. Another point or another step is, if emergency issues arise during the visit, take related actions immediately. Alert supervisor and note in the case plan. Make referral to service providers if needed. Another point is that following each visit with the household, record notes on date of the next visit, whether or not the household is on track, any changes in the care plan that need to be made, notes on direct support provided by the caseworker, and a signature or thumbprint by a member of the household and the caseworker. Review case file and familiarize yourself with strengths and the challenges of the family, the case plan. Another point is, you pre-fill case review from with any information already contained in case file that is to be confirmed with the children or a caregiver during visit. Schedule visit, explaining to family the purpose of case review and 6 domains role of the family in case review. How the information will be used. Another point is that you discuss the findings of the case review with family and develop new care plan goals to address any newly identified needs. If case review reveals all benchmarks are met and the case plan is complete, discuss planning for closure with the family. That is, you prepare them that maybe by next month we are going to end this kind of interaction, since our project, our objectives was to make sure that this and this happens. So discuss with the family that we are likely to close down the interaction, having gone through it successfully. We have now come to the end of our discussion today. The discussion has been successful, and we have discussed case management process, whereby we have gone through different stages or processes or steps involved in case management process, running from identification all the way to closure. Remember, this information is going to help you in one or another in running any organization as far as children matters is concerned. Thank you, and welcome again for the next video that we are going to shoot soonest possible. Karibu. I'm humbled.